welcome. I'm Cheryl Mitchell, the president of Trellivan Inc. We are a retreat and learning center that's nestled on a sheep farm here in Addison County. And we're very interested in the intersections between spirit, nature, and social justice. So you might ask, why are we partnering with Building Bright Futures, an early childhood program? And the main reason is that we really feel as if the ways that our communities support families with young kids is perhaps the most important thing that we can all be doing. And I've been thrilled to have an opportunity to be interviewing people here in Addison County who are making such a huge difference in the lives of children and families, and very grateful that today Tricia Allen, who's the children's librarian at the Ilsley Library, has agreed to join us. So welcome, Tricia.
Well, thank you very much, Cheryl.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to say it's this is really only peripherally related to early childhood, but I also do a little bit of work with NOFA, the Northeast Organic Farming Association, and we're thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fabulous to have another book about farming in Vermont as the Vermont Reads Book of the Year. So after the program, I'm going to stop and ask you for a couple of great suggestions.
Great. I would love to do that. And I also, not horribly related, but I love what NOFA does. They're the reason I get a CSA during the summer, so fabulous.
That's great
Happy
to hear.
To support them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you could start by telling us about how you came to be the children's librarian here at Ilsley.
How I became the children's librarian here at Ilsley. Well, I'm going to step a little bit further back from that, if that's okay with you.
Fine, totally fine.
The story of how I became a librarian to begin with, which is somewhat interesting. I love telling this story when we have college classes and college students come through the children's library, because when I first started my undergraduate program, I was a molecular genetics major with plans to become a lawyer and deal with the ethics of all the stuff that's happening with genetics. And that is not where I ended up, thankfully. So initially I had all these great science and law, and it lasted for one semester. I was at UVM one semester, and I learned that I hated working in a lab. That was not for me. It was awful. There was no one else there. There was no one to joke with. It was not the right environment for me. So I switched to English, much to my parents' dismay. And I was an English major, and later became a dual major in English and psychology with a focus on early development. And that you can kind of see a clearer path from there. But I came to graduation, the end of my junior year, when I have to start thinking about, okay, what's going to happen when I'm done here? I'm going to be a real adult. I have to do adulty things like pay bills, and how am I going to do that? And I had no idea what I was going to do with an English degree. So one night I was babysitting, and I was reading a Dr. Seuss book, and on one page it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And in the back, in like 3-point font, are a whole bunch of professions listed. So after I tucked the young lady into bed, I was like, let's see what these suggestions are. I went back to the page and started I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a veterinarian. No, none of this stuff really works for me. And I came to librarian, and I was like, oh, I like books. I like kids. And for some reason, it just hadn't occurred to me as a thing you could do. That was an actual job. I spent a lot of my childhood in the library and loved it. But as often happens, stopped going quite as much once I got to be school age and hadn't made it back yet. So I, set up an internship at the same elementary school that I had attended as a child. So that was a lot of fun. My first real librarian experience was actually in Essex Elementary School, which was the school with the same librarian who I had K-1-2. And I loved it. It was fabulous. It was amazing. I loved working with the kids. I loved working with the books. It was as wonderful as I had hoped it would be. So I went right on to my master's program at SUNY Buffalo, and got my MLS. Worked for a while. It was
MLS, Masters in Library Studies?
Library
Science.
Okay. Yes. And so my husband was also finishing up his master's in English at the same time, and we're, well, we'll move, whoever gets a job first, that's where we're going to go. So I happened to get a job first as the librarian down in Salem, Massachusetts, which was a fabulous city for a couple of newlyweds. It was a lot of fun, a lot of museums. You could zip down to Boston. But as much as we loved it, we kind of knew we didn't want to raise kids there. I have a lot of friends still there with kids who are doing a great job. It was wonderful. But having both of us having grown up in Vermont, we wanted to come back and have the stronger sense of community and collaboration with neighbors and other parents. It's a different feeling here in Vermont. So when our oldest child was heading into her last year of preschool, we started really looking to move up here to Vermont.
This is Lily?
Lily,
one of your literary daughters?
Yes, yes. She was actually named after Lily Potter because we're both Harry Potter fans, but anyway. So we started looking to move back up to Vermont, and I was extremely lucky that a position here at the Ilsley Public Library in Middlebury opened up, and I was selected for the position. Wow. So we moved here 2.5 years ago. As you said, my daughter's now a first grader at the local elementary school, and it's been wonderful. I just had a family reunion of sorts, and my sister asked, do you miss being in Salem? It's like, yes and no. I mean, there are things I loved about it. It was great. But as far as raising my kids, Middlebury is so much better for our family to be up here in Vermont. And I love the sense of community that we have here, being able to say hi to everyone we know as we're walking around town. And professionally, I was floored when I first came by how many people sought me out for introductions and meetings, and I work with the teen center, and I want to get to know you. I want to work together with you to put together programs. I'm over at the elementary school. I want to get together with you. I do this. I'm even from clergymen to educators to
so people really were seeking you out.
Were really seeking me out, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. And that's one thing I really appreciate about the Ilsley Library Middlebury community is the library has really been made a central part of the community and get a lot of support from everyone. So it's really a fabulous place to live and work. So I am thrilled that this is where...
Well, I have to say, I never thought of Dr. Seuss as a career counselor, but it sounds like he did a good job.
Oddly appropriate in this instance, yes. Yeah.
So maybe you could talk about, I know you're carrying on many of the programs that had already been started before you came, but you've also started some new ones. Yeah. Why don't you talk to us about the staples, or the things that you love the most?
Yeah. Oh, things I love the most. Well,
they may not be the same. You can do either one.
Well, I think staples, obviously story time. That's going to be the first thing that comes to people's minds when you talk about libraries and kids, story time. And actually, there's a very timely article in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about story times and the shift in the paradigm of story times, and how in several branches in New York City there are lines of people waiting to get into story time. They're packed, they're stuffed to the gills. And it was really nice, first of all, to see that attention brought to libraries and story times and programming.
I have to say, I took my granddaughter to story time in Cambridge, Mass, and you had to go way ahead of time and get tickets. Yep. Because they're so popular.
Yeah. More and more, that is what you are finding. A big part of that, it seems, anecdotally, is with a shift from what you might picture when someone says story time. Oh, there's a very nice librarian sitting at the front with her book, and the kids spread out, and she reads the story to them, which is part of it. But especially with today's story times, there's so much more to it. It's a much more deliberate experience for librarians as well as those who are coming to our story times, where we're really working hard to assist with school readiness skills. It's early literacy, it's early numeracy, it's social emotional development for kids. And that was addressed in the New York Times article and dovetailed with our experiences here in Middlebury. In fact, we, Ilsley Library, myself and my assistant Catherine, both went through training with VLI, the Vermont Early Literacy Initiative, last year, which trains librarians around the state on how to incorporate those early numeracy, literacy, and social emotional development skills into story times and into programs, both so that we can help pass that information on to kids. You know, we are trying to support that learning 1 through 5 and recognizing some letters and the shapes and color, you know, all those sort of preschool staples. But also trying to teach parents, you know, you're your child's first educator. There are very concrete, not too difficult things that you can do to really support your child's early education and get them ready to face school, to face, you know, whatever comes next. You're building those first building blocks into your child's life path to success.
Can you give us an example of something that you might share with a parent?
One thing that I like to tell my storytime parents, and the way that Catherine and I work things out, Catherine's my assistant, I do the story time for the little kids, so birth to about 3, babies, toddlers, and Catherine does the preschool, so 3 to 5s. And I initially started doing baby story times back in Salem just after I had my first child. And I did not want to do it at first because, like, oh, baby story times, like, wow, you're reading, the babies aren't, like, they're not going to be interacting with you. They're there. I don't know. I was asked to do it before I had my daughter. And then I had my daughter and I realized, man, this is hard. Here I am, you know, a librarian. I know all the stuff, you know, intellectually. I know you're supposed to talk to your children. I know you're supposed to interact with them, tell them about your daily life, ask them questions, point things out. And then in reality, I would realize I have been home with my child and haven't said a word in the past 4 hours. Like, this is bad. This is not good. So I really worked on turning story time into an opportunity to teach parents, like, this is how you do it. This is how you do talk to your kids. This is how you do play with them. This is how you get through those really, and my daughter was born in January, so it wasn't helping things. I'm on the couch under the blankets with the baby trying to make it through that cold winter. And so, you know, it was a lot of teaching nursery rhymes and you know, this is how you do things. If you're walking down the street, you can do a rhyme about walking, hop, 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 running, now we stop. And now people look at me like I was crazy because here I was with a baby strapped to my chest, walking, hopping, running, and stopping. But my baby was laughing and, you know, looking at me. We're having that parent-child interaction, which is so important, so wonderful. So that was really a big defining moment for me in story times, but also as being a librarian. It's like, this is important work that we're doing. These are really important things for a parent to know because parenting is hard. It's really hard. From the very beginning, it's hard. And it was a way to, you know, make things hopefully easier, show parents, you know, here are some things. I'm not saying it isn't hard, because it is hard. Here are some things to make it less hard. Yeah. Here are some tools that we can help you get. Here are songs that you can sing. And you probably, now that I say Old MacDonald, you probably remember singing Old MacDonald as a child. You know it, you just didn't know you knew it. So here are songs, here are games, here is how you can look at a book with your baby and you can talk about what you're seeing no, they aren't going to talk back to you, but here are things that you can look for that show your baby is taking things in. Like, notice where their eyes are looking. Once they've got some hand control, they might be trying to reach for the book.
Yeah.
They might be mouthing the book. That's great. That's an early literacy skill right there. There's a reason why board books are made out of cardboard. Those are for babies. They go in the mouth. We understand. That's totally fine. So trying to show parents, like, here are ways that you can interact with your child, and this will make your parenting a little bit easier.
So, Tricia, it's so exciting to hear you saying this, because my first thought was when you said, I realized that I had been home and I hadn't talked to my baby for 4 hours. Your next statement was going to be, all I really wanted to do was go talk to some grown-ups. And that you were going to change story hours so that the grown-ups could go out and talk to some grown-ups. And instead, you're bringing all this enthusiasm to helping adults and kids learn these wonderful ways of interacting.
Yeah. Well, yes. So it is primarily, here is how you can interact with your child. And I titled my baby story time at that point, Play With Me. And that's why, it's not about sitting down and reading books. It's about interacting with your child and doing all these early literacy things and really making them realize that songs, music, Mother Goose rhymes, all of those things are early literacy building blocks.
Yeah.
They're really important. So building early literacy isn't necessarily pulling Goodnight Moon off the shelf and reading it to your child, although that's great. If you do that, fabulous. Continue on. But it doesn't have to be, I have so many moms who come in and say, like, Dad, I'd love to see you at story time. Come on in. That would be great. We have a lot of fun. Oh, well, John, he can't sit still for more than 2 minutes. That's totally fine. No one else can either.
So they can go sit in the bathtub downstairs?
They can sit in the bathtub. We do, I try to make that clear to parents when they come to story time, saying that, everyone in this room is either a parent or has been taking care of kids. We all know what it's like to have kids. No one here expects for your child to sit still on the floor and listen and pay attention for more than 10 seconds. I mean, this isn't, if that's not what story time is about. Yes, there are some times when we will encourage you to have them in your lap and be looking at books or playing a game, but if they want to go up and walk around in the back of the room, that's fine. They're still learning, they're still taking stuff in.
So, talking about pulling books from the shelf, I mean, do you have relationships with the Dolly Parton program? And
Dolly Parton Imagination Library, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is active here in Addison County. Any child who lives in Addison County between the ages of birth and 5 years can sign up for the program. It's free. And then every month they will get a book in the mail, which is fabulous. I mean, they're nice books. All 3 of my kids have been, signed up right when we got here. So there was a period of time when we were getting 3 books in the mail every month. My daughter has now aged out. My son's about to. But they love it. I mean, they love getting mail. I mean, you probably know kids love getting mail. So it's a good opportunity for us to work on print awareness. Like, whose name is this? It starts with a B. Oh, that's Bram's book. Oh, I recognize your name. Early kindergarten skill. But then also we have all these books that, we've got on the shelf, and they pull them out again and again, and, oh, that's great. Let's sit down. Let's read this book. Let's look at this book. That's another thing that I try to talk to parents about or teach parents about as far as kids and books, especially little kids and books. It's very rare that you will sit down with a little kid, start at the beginning of a book, make it to the end of the book, no interruptions, no problems, that's all you've done. What's much more likely is that you might start at the beginning, and then either they'll get bored after a couple minutes and walk away, or they'll say, no, Mom, I want to look at this picture, and flip forward 5 pages to their favorite part, or they'll want to go back. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's actually excellent. One of the things, changes in education right now is to Common Core standards. And there's much more emphasis on nonfiction and how to read nonfiction. Nonfiction books are set up very differently than fiction books, which you may know. And one of the things that kids have to sort of learn, and parents now have to learn, is that you can read just a little chunk and get the information that you want, and that's fine. You don't have to
So
read
are you,
the whole book.
as the library, supporting parents in learning that stuff around social studies and science and math?
Well, we
and
try.
Uh-huh.
We're here. We're a resource.
Yeah.
If you're curious, come talk to me, please. So we do, we work with parents on a daily basis, whether it's the parents coming in to story time and learning those early education, early skills, whether it's parents coming in with their kids to pick out books and say, hey, I just finished all of the Magic Treehouse books. What should I read next?
Yeah.
And helping, doing that reader's advisory. What's another good book that's out
So
there?
you're a real parenting resource as well, not just a
Heck
resource
yes.
for the kids. So, and I'm realizing, Tricia, we're going to run out of time, unfortunately.
so sorry.
And there are many other programs that you're
Yeah.
doing. Do you
Yeah.
want to tell us some of those?
Well, let's see. What sort of programs do we have? We have story times for, like I said, the littles and the not as littles. We also have weekend story times for parents who work during the week so that they can come in and join the fun too. Those are all family oriented. For our early elementary school, we are currently having a ukulele strum along, which is a lot of fun. We were talking a little bit earlier about the benefits of music for kids just in and of itself, but also as a literacy support, numeracy support. Music ties into so many other parts of your daily life. It's fabulous. So we've got a ukulele strum along. We've got after school programs for some of the older elementary school kids. Actually, we partner with MCTV to do a youth media lab where kids learn how to create and produce their own media, which is fabulous. We've got some really amazing work coming out of that after school camp, as well as the longer camps we run over school breaks and during the summer. We've got a crafting and book discussion group on Wednesday afternoons. We actually pull out the Wii for video gaming on Fridays. And have a core group of kids who absolutely love coming in and interacting with their peers on that level, which is so fun to see. That's actually a really fun one because I see everyone from 4th grade up through high school, all these kids working together.
So you're sort
and
of
playing
actually
and
the
collaborating.
alternative after-school program, summer camp program in town.
Well,
Is that...
yeah, we are free, which
You're
is
free, right.
huge. We're free. Everyone should come to the library. We're free.
And you can't turn people away even
No.
if you're overwhelmed with people.
Well, right. We don't turn people away. We do have a age policy for children. They have to be at least 9 years old to be left at
By
the
themselves.
library by
Okay.
themselves. Under 9, they need to have a parent in the building
Yeah.
with them, which,
Makes sense. Right.
It makes sense on a whole bunch of different levels. So we'll have several kids, once they're 9 years old, once they're in 4th grade, we have several kids who walk on over from the local elementary school. And again, we are so lucky that we are within walking distance of the elementary school. And they'll come and they'll play computers, or they'll join in some of our after-school programs, or they'll read a book. Amazing. All sorts of fun things for them to come and do. And then during the summer, we do offer several programs for kids to participate in. Summer is a crazy busy time in the best possible way for the library, between summer reading and performers and programs. Yeah.
So you've given us this whole broad spectrum. Let's go back to, so what do you love best about doing this work?
See, this is why it's so hard. What do I love best? My favorite part of my job is interacting with parents and families and kids. That goes back to why I did not end up as a molecular genetic scientist. Is I love being able to see all the different people come through the door every day and help them out and make their day better. It's great when I get Storytime kids coming in asking me to do Willoughby Wallaby with them, or when I have parents who come in and say, that book you recommended last week was fabulous, he tore through it, now we need 3 more books in order to keep this going. So I love working with parents and families. I love that interaction. I love that I'm doing it around books and literacy. I mean, I love and have always loved reading, both for information and for pleasure. Being able to experience something new without leaving your room. It's just a magic that, I love. I'm using love a lot, but I really do love my job.
It really shines through the way you talk, Tricia. Do you have any dreams? Are there new things, wonderful things you'd like to see happen?
Well, we're always trying to grow, and most importantly, serve populations who we don't serve, who we aren't seeing, who we aren't supporting. And that is actually one of the trickiest things about my job, is it's easy to see who's coming in. It's a lot harder to see who's not coming in.
Interesting, yeah.
And so trying to figure out where are the holes, where are the gaps, who aren't we reaching, how can we reach them? And part of it, some of it is just national trends. I wish I had more middle schoolers and high schoolers coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working on that. I'm, again, extremely lucky that we've got some great connections with the high school librarian, the middle school librarian, working on different programs, trying different things. But it's also a national, truth that it's easy to reach the preschoolers in the library, and then it gets harder as they get older. And then usually we don't get them back as patrons until they start having their own kids.
Well, it's exciting to me that Building Bright Futures here in this county is now working really cooperatively with IFS, because that really is the full age span. And it seems like having your participation and that of the schools is just wonderful. Anyway, I so much wish we had more time. I have so many more questions to ask you, but thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you.
For those of you that want to get in touch with Tricia, her contact information is going to come up in just a moment. And as she mentioned, they do some wonderful cooperative programs with Middlebury Community Television. So if you have a nonprofit and you'd like to get information out or talk about how you could work with them, the folks here are just wonderful. So please get in touch with them. And thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you'll come back next time. Thanks.